Welcome to ASHA's IS Institute. We are looking at editorials and question bank for 27th October 2016. First, looking at the editorials. The first editorial in the Hindu newspaper today is running to stand still. So this is regarding the news which we saw yesterday. That is the World Bank's report on ease of doing business 2017. In this report, it has ranked India as 130 out of 190 nations. We have improved our rank marginally. So the revised ranking for the previous year was 131. So there has not been much improvement, though we have been making improvements and easing the doing business in India. So Government of India has also brought this in front of the World Bank, saying that we have made various changes, reforms, so that should be replicated in the report as well. The World Bank report gives details also, and in its analysis it uses Mumbai and Delhi as the standards based on which it calculates the ease of doing business rankings for India. So it's Government of India is arguing that it is not just Mumbai and Delhi where changes are made, but changes are replicated throughout the country. So those aspects should also be taken into consideration. The World Bank has also praised India that many changes, positive developments have taken place. So that is not denied, but the thing is that other countries have also improvised. So overall, in terms of ranking, India has not fared well. So this is about the ease of doing business ranking too. So we have done this yesterday. India ranks 130. The ranking is based on 10 parameters. You can see here: starting a business, dealing with construction permits, getting electricity. This is important from prelims perspective when you are asked a question on what parameters it is ranked. Registering a property, getting credit, protecting investors, paying taxes, trading across borders, enforcing contracts, and finally resolving insolvency. So based on all these 10 parameters, India has fared extremely well in getting electricity, which has improved substantially. But remember, this is basically based on Mumbai and Delhi data. Then on another aspect is paying taxes, which has improvements are shown in the World Bank report. Even trading across borders and in contracts also, it has shown that positive developments have taken place. So there are praises also, but India, of course, the government is not satisfied. There are concerns also, because India itself has concerns with ease of doing business, like aspects of retrospective taxes. Retrospective tax means tax is applicable from a former date. Means, say on 27th October 2016, Government of India enforces a law which is imposing a tax, but the tax has to be paid not from today or from a future date, but from a past date. Say from 1st April 2016 onwards, companies will have to pay this new tax. So though I have not made that tax earlier, I am making it today, but I am making it applicable from a former date. So that is called retrospective tax. So this becomes a bone of contention, and many foreign companies are filed against them, and they do not adhere to such provisions. So this is a issue in ease of doing business actually. So government needs to make provisions for this. Former government, UPA government, faced difficulties here. The NDA government, BJP government had said that we'll make this rule simplify them, but then many developments have not taken place. These are still continuing. So these are lingering demands, it is said. Then another aspect, and court cases go on actually. And then another aspect is e-Biz platform. This also we have discussed yesterday, which government has launched. So this we have already discussed earlier in news, which government initiatives for ease of doing business. If you remember, e-Biz is single window clearance for all central and state services, which the government will provide for. Then the goods and services tax, GST reforms, and the bankruptcy norms, once brought in place, are bound to improve ease of doing business in India. So the next year's rankings would be much better. So those are the aspects highlighted. The editorial also says that the government should not look into the World Bank ranking per se. It should concentrate on improvising business, easing business doing in India. That would pay returns rather than just the ranking. But of course, the ranking also has its significance. Then the next editorial in the Hindu newspaper today is terror returns to Quetta. This also we have already discussed yesterday in news. This was regarding the terrorist attack. 3 terrorists attacked the Quetta Police Training Center, which is in the capital of Balochistan in Pakistan. This is a region of unrest. As we said yesterday too, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had also highlighted the unrest in Balochistan to Pakistan earlier. So the claims for this attack have been taken by 3 terrorist organizations. IS also claimed, Islamic State claimed responsibility, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan also claimed responsibility, and another is Lashkar-e-Jhanvi. These 3 militant groups have claimed responsibility. Now Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan has been brought down by Pakistan for long. So Pakistan army is against this terrorist organization, but the partial treatment which Pakistan gives to various terrorist organizations means some are brought down with force and some are allowed to prevail as exporting terrorism to India and Afghanistan. So this partial treatment is clearly documented. India highlights it quite often. Even USA has highlighted it. Even Afghanistan speaks against Pakistan. So we are seeing these aspects of Pakistan's partial treatment or uneven treatment to terrorism. So it is paying the price for that too. So that's what the editorial also says, that such practices will actually allow terrorism to prosper in its own country too. So it has to act firmly against all forms of terrorism. You cannot discriminate. So this is, the country has a record of hobnobbing with terrorists for geopolitical leverage, providing cover to some terrorists to bleed India and gain influence in Afghanistan. In the absence of full-fledged fight against all terrorists, violent groups looking for recruits will find easy pickings in parts of Pakistan. Pakistan will never be able to prosper. So this is, again, we saw this map yesterday too in news. Quetta, where the attack took place. Earlier too, we had spoken of in August 2016, a hospital in Quetta was bombed. So, and this is the Tehreek-e-Taliban is prominent here. In Peshawar too, an attack on Army Public School had taken place, which had also majorly children been killed. So these were also army men children. So this was a major attack which took place in Peshawar also. So this is Quetta attack, hospital attack, which is shown. Then this is the Army Public School attack in Peshawar. And another important aspect is it is coming strongly against Tehreek-e-Taliban because it wants Gwadar, the Gwadar port which China is developing in Pakistan, to be prospering. This is the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. This was the original plan in red line to go taking across till Kashgar. But now China has remodified it. The alternate route which has been proposed now is this, not going through this Balochistan province and the FATA regions of Pakistan, which are generally under unrest and terrorist activities are prominent here. So this is also there. So these were the 2 editorials. Next, looking at the question bank for 27th October 2016. So the questions which we have picked up from the Hindu newspaper for today. The first one is, Hinduism or Hindutva is a way of life, not just a religion. Discuss in context of section 123(3) of Representation of Peoples Act 1951. So we have again discussed this in news and it will be going on for long now till the Supreme Court gives its judgment on this case. It is a 7-judge bench of the Supreme Court which is presently looking into the matter. The Chief Justice of India, Mrs. Thakur, is leading this bench, heading this bench. Section 123 of Representation of Peoples Act actually talks of corrupt practices for the purpose of elections. So section 123(3), part 3 is actually about appeal by a candidate made to vote or refrain from voting for any person on the ground of his religion, race, caste, community or language, or the use of appeal to religious symbols. So all these aspects, such appeals, will be part of corrupt religious practice. So what is being debated in judges are looking into is the interpretation of this section 123(3). So the genesis is actually Dr. B.R. Ambedkar had made his statements, who has played a key role in drafting of this Representation of Peoples Act 2. So what was it actually intended to be achieved through this section is that he was keen on ensuring that the statute conformed to secular principles. He said, Ambedkar said, I think the elections ought to be conducted on issues which have nothing to do with religion or culture. So that was the basis. So whether this is a corrupt religious practice or not, and the case specifically under consideration is the Hindutva case, in which a Supreme Court bench headed by Justice J.S. Verma had passed a judgment in December 1995. This was a case in which appeals were heard on the judgment of Bombay High Court, that was against the members of Shiv Sena and BJP. It was then Chief Minister of Maharashtra to Manohar Joshi. They had won elections in 1987 and they were found guilty by the Bombay High Court under section 123 of the Representation of People's Act. So even Shiv Sena leader Bal Thackeray, all these were accused in these cases, and it was said that Bal Thackeray in his speeches had made statements like, the Muslims should bear in mind that this country is of Hindus and the same shall remain of Hindus. If Shiv Sena comes to power and if the Morchas come, first of all we shall make them come. Everybody will have to take Diksha. Diksha means initiation into Hindu religion. So such were the statements made by him. The Supreme Court reversed the order of the Bombay High Court and it said, Justice Verma had made statements that it is difficult to appreciate how the term Hinduism or Hindutva per se in the abstract can be assumed to mean and be equated with narrow fundamentalist Hindu religion boycotting. So it's not just Hinduism is not just a religion, but it is a way of life. So this was the statement made by Justice Verma in 1995 under this case, and he had refuted to put them under restrictions under section 123 of Representation of People's Act. Just saying Hindutva is not that. So he says that the word Hindutva is used and understood as a synonym of Indianization, that is development of uniform culture by obliterating the differences between all the cultures coexisting in the country. So that is the thing. The verdict in CM Chief Minister Manohar Joshi's case was, the court found that the statement which he made, that the first Hindu state will be established in Maharashtra if they come to power. So this was not tantamount to invoking religion in soliciting votes, but was rather merely the expression at best of such a hope. So this is also not violating. That was the 1995 judgment. Even presently before the present Supreme Court judge, which is again looking into section 123(3) Act, Representation of People's Act provision, the case was put forth on redefinition or reviewing the judgment of 1995, but the Supreme Court refused to take in this proposal. It said it would not pass a judgment on this 1995 case. So the entire article is actually regarding that it is an opportunity missed. It is just same as abdication of a critical responsibility. Means it's the Supreme Court's responsibility to review its former judgments if they are violating or if they are not adherent to the essence of the laws. Then the next question is on the GSPC, Gujarat State Petroleum Corporation. So there are articles and counter articles brought in the Hindu. We saw Jairam Ramesh's article on 24th October. Now on 27th there is another article refuting those claims or responding to those allegations. The question, we keep it as the same. The mergers of loss-making undertakings with successful PSUs can prove to be either a boon or a bane. Elucidate. So this is the same question which we have already discussed on 24th October in the question bank. Please refer to that as well. So now this we have seen merger of GSPC and ONGC, which is GSPC is said to be a loss-making entity. Right now it's a state public sector undertaking of Gujarat. It has its major stake in KG Basin, Krishna Godavari Basin, which is along the coast of Andhra Pradesh. So it is underdebt because Jairam Ramesh claims that the reserves, estimated reserves in Krishna Godavari Basin were declared to be very high, and eventually over the years it has gradually reduced, and the debt or the loans which the GSPC is taking has increased. So this is the graph also which is shown here, that as the years passed from 2005 when it was announced and GSPC formed to 2015, over the decade the estimated KG Basin gas reserves have declined and the loans which they have taken from banks have kept on increasing. So presently it is 20,000 crores which is the loan on GSPC, and presently 50% stake sale has happened to ONGC. So that is the entire issue based on which this entire article was come up. The CAG has also reprimanded GSPC because of the loans which it has taken and has been unable to repay, as well as the blocks which it surrendered without any gas being produced. So in Egypt, in Yemen, Indonesia, Australia, it has written off and sold off many blocks, surrendered many blocks without having any gains out of them. So this had brought in CAG's ire to Comptroller and Auditor General of India. So present issue about the sale of KG Basin, it actually depends on, because ONGC also has its presence alongside in the KG Basin only, and the present article, it says that GSP had invested, not wasted, a significant amount of money, time and effort in the KG Basin. It said that we had developed special hydrofracking operations in such a way that a depth of more than 5,000 meter gas can also be recovered. So this is a feat achieved for the first time in India and almost unmatched in petroleum engineering in the world. So these are the claims made. They say that the geographical and geophysical conditions in KG block, Krishna Godavari block, poses technical challenges. That's why it is difficult to explore and develop in these regions. It has low porosity, low permeability and high pressure, high temperature. So how do these tight reservoirs which are at depth of more than 4,000 meters with so many complexities, how can they be recovered was the major challenge, and they have advocated and brought forth many technologies. So by research, by development of these technologies, this was where the money was spent. But in terms of output, they have not achieved much, and in terms of loans have accumulated. So this is one point which is of significance, that some technological developments of course took place. So here also what each will gain and lose. So partly the payment of debt will go into ONGC's kitty. And of course ONGC will acquire the world-class hydrofracturing technology which can work in high pressure, high temperature conditions which are present in KG Basin. So of course there are benefits and disadvantages too. The debt which GSPC has accumulated is not denied, it is a fact, and also that it has not produced any gas till date, any significant gas till date, is also a fact not denied. But then the thing is whether it is a genuine business loss or is it not even a business loss yet, but it will be able to gather itself together, but then it is taking the support of ONGC, that is not denied again too. So that means that since both are public sector undertakings, one is under heavy debt and another one is a profit-making PSU with international presence, a central PSU, but the acquisition is approved. That is of course government's approval, so that cannot be questioned again. So these are the facts. That is it. Thank you.